Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Tim and Rebecca Bliefnick? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Tim and Rebecca Bliefnick lived in Quincy, Illinois. Rebecca went by the name Becky. After getting married in 2009, they went on to have 3 sons. Tim was in the recycling business. Becky went back to school and pursued a nursing career. In 2020, Tim and some of his family members appeared on an episode of the game show Family Feud. The episode was recorded in 2019 but aired in 2020. During the game, Tim was asked the question, "What's the biggest mistake you made at your wedding?" He replied, quote, "Honey, I love you," but said, "I do," unquote. As it turns out, saying "I do" was the number 2 answer on the board. Tim explained to the host that he wasn't referring to his mistake and claimed that he loved his wife. He followed that with, quote, "I'm going to get in trouble for that, aren't I?" unquote. This Family Feud answer has drawn a lot of attention to this case. I'll talk more about it in the analysis. Tim filed for divorce. He moved into a house about a mile away from the marital family home where Becky lived. The couple shared custody of their 3 sons as they moved through a contentious divorce process. They were fighting over custody, money, and the house. At one point, Tim accused Becky of stalking and harassing him. He sought an order of protection, but it was denied by the court. Becky implied that Tim was unpredictable and claimed that he tried to enter her residence without permission. She also tried to get an order of protection and, just like Tim, was denied by the court. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Factor. Too busy this fall to cook, but want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, skip the chopping, preparation, and cleaning up, as well as the extra trip to the grocery store, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. Factor helps you to avoid takeout and ordering in with delicious and nutritious, no-nonsense food that's ready quickly. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. Factor offsets 100% of their delivery emissions and sources 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices. Factor is my go-to solution for dinner after a long day of researching, analyzing, and recording. Factor helps me to stay efficient and to avoid wasting time on cooking or going to the grocery store. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code DrGrande50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. That's 50% off your first Factor box at Factor75.com, DrGrande50. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On February 22, 2023, 41-year-old Becky Bliefnick was at her home alone. 40-year-old Tim Bliefnick was watching the couple's 3 sons. Becky wasn't feeling well that night and asked him to look after them. At about 1:11 a.m., now on February 23, Becky was murdered in her house. Her father went to check on her in the afternoon. He found her dead and called 911. Here's what the police found during their investigation. Becky's body was on the bathroom floor. It appeared as though she ran there after being attacked in her bedroom. Becky had been shot 14 times with a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. 8 spent 9mm cartridge cases were recovered in the house. Pieces of a shredded bag were found around Becky's body. The bag was from an Aldi grocery store. An upstairs window for one of the children's bedrooms had been pried open. There was a partial shoe print in the carpet near the window. Becky's bedroom door was broken in, as if somebody kicked it in. Behind the door, the police found Becky's cell phone. An examination of the phone revealed that Becky had attempted to call 911 at 1:11 a.m., which is how the police knew the exact time she was murdered. Nothing was stolen from Becky's house. The neighbors did not observe any unusual behavior. Becky's next-door neighbor had a surveillance camera. It did not pick up anything at the time of the murder, but it did capture a few interesting items at other times. a person could be seen walking down Becky's driveway toward the back of her house on February 22 at 1:05 a.m. This was 24 hours before the murder. At 1:53 a.m., a person was captured walking the opposite way. It appeared to be the same individual. On February 14, a week before the murder, the surveillance camera captured something similar. Investigators were able to find other useful videos from 2 other surveillance cameras in the area. Right before the murder, a person can be seen riding a bicycle in the direction of Becky's house. Right after the murder, the rider could be seen going in the opposite direction. The bicycle did not appear to have reflectors on the wheels. The timing of the bicycle movements aligned with the person walking in the driveway, like it could have been the same person. A few days after the murder, the police found a bicycle that had no reflectors on the wheels. It was half a block from Tim's house. The police thought that maybe Tim was the mysterious person in the videos. After all, he was going through a contentious divorce with the victim. On March 1, 2023, the police searched Tim's house and his motor vehicle. They found Aldi bags, 54 spent cartridge cases, and a crowbar. Tim was arrested on March 13, 2023, and charged with murder. His trial started on May 23, 2023, exactly 3 months after the murder. So this went from arrest to trial very quickly. The prosecution called 46 witnesses and presented a large quantity of evidence. Tim's defense did not call a single witness, not even an expert, to refute the state's experts. Tim was found guilty of murder. A few months later, on August 11, 2023, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis. Tim Bliefnick maintains his innocence. He suggested he had nothing to do with the murder and could never have done something like that. Clearly, the state of Illinois disagreed. They implied that Tim was unstable and wanted his wife to be dead. This brings me to the question, was Tim guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Tim and Becky were going through an acrimonious divorce. They had been scheduled to go to court about a week after Becky was murdered. About a year before Becky was murdered, she sent a text message to her sister, which implicated Tim in the event of her murder. Becky wrote, quote, "If something ever happens to me, please make sure the number one person of interest is Tim, as that is who would do something to me," unquote. She continued by saying that she was fearful that Tim would harm her, and he lied to paint himself as the victim and her as the perpetrator when it was the other way around. Tim was curious if his backyard was covered by his neighbor's security cameras. He asked his neighbor about this in January. A surveillance camera picked up a suspicious person walking on Becky's driveway about 24 hours before she was murdered. The same thing happened about a week before the murder. Other surveillance cameras captured a person riding a bicycle with no reflectors on the wheels in the direction of Becky's house and later away from that direction. The timing suggested that the person could have been the killer. Near Tim's house, the police found a bicycle. It did not have reflectors on the wheels. Tim had a fake Facebook account under the name John Smith. He looked at a blue bicycle that was missing reflectors on the wheels, just like the bicycle that was found near his house after the murder. During the time that the surveillance cameras captured the person on the bicycle and the person walking on Becky's driveway, there was no activity on Tim's electronic devices. Also, there was no activity on his devices during the time of the murder. Becky's new boyfriend visited her home on February 13, 2023, 10 days before the murder. No activity was detected on Tim's computer from about 8 p.m. on February 13 to 1 a.m. on February 14. After this, he conducted 200 internet searches over the course of 38 minutes, including, quote, "How do I find the owner for license plate?" unquote. This makes it seem like Tim was the person caught on Becky's driveway on February 14, like he had noticed her boyfriend's pickup truck in her driveway and became angry and jealous. The physical evidence at the crime scene was consistent with the theory that the killer knew Becky's house fairly well. The intruder broke in through a window of a bedroom of one of Becky's sons. How did the intruder know that the room would be unoccupied? The intruder did not steal anything from the house. The only objective of the intrusion was to kill Becky. Tim had a motive to kill Becky. No one else did. Becky was shot with a 9mm pistol. She owned a 9mm pistol. Tim supposedly had it. Becky had a court order for Tim to return that pistol, but he said he couldn't find it. Of the 54 spent cases found in Tim's house, 27 of them had been fired from the same gun used in the murder. A crowbar was found in Tim's house, which was consistent with the tool used to pry open the window. Bags from the grocery store Aldi were found in Tim's house, which matched the pieces found around Becky's body. An expert testified that DNA found on one of the bag pieces probably came from Tim. Tim could not be excluded as the contributor of DNA found under Becky's fingernails. Tim had made several suspicious internet searches. For example, how to make a homemade pistol silencer, how to open my door with a crowbar, how to clean gunpowder off your hands, can you just wash off gunshot residue, how to open a window from the outside, can you identify if the shotgun shell was shot out of a specific gun, how can I check if a gun is registered to me, and does my Whoop record the exact times I wear it? Whoop is a reference to a type of fitness tracker. Moving to the exculpatory factors, there was no way to identify the person caught on the surveillance video. It could have been just about anybody. Prowlers had been breaking into cars in the area and trying to break into houses. Maybe a mysterious unknown intruder was the killer. Tim did not initiate the child care arrangement for the night of the murder. Becky asked him to watch their sons because she was not feeling well. And the shoe print found at the crime scene did not match any shoe found in Tim's house. When considering all the evidence, do I think that Tim Bliefnick was guilty of murder? Yes, I think he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. There's really hardly any doubt at all in this case. There was no one piece of evidence that represented a smoking gun, but when considering all the evidence together, it was highly convincing. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. When Tim and Becky married, they probably demonstrated behavior in their relationship which fell within normal bounds. Everything was good for about 5 years. At this point, however, Tim's behavior started to deviate from what was acceptable to Becky. It's not clear what was going on. No information about mental health has been released, but Becky believed that Tim had mental health problems. She suggested that he would not offer assistance at home, and she claimed that he screamed in her face, threw things across the room, and shoved her. In addition, Tim's appearance in photographs after the murder makes him seem disheveled and perhaps as though he wasn't taking care of his hygiene. Based on Tim's frantic efforts to identify Becky's boyfriend, not long before the murder, it's possible that obsessive behaviors or traits played a part. Like Tim was thinking about Becky all the time. He was the one who filed for divorce, but maybe Becky was the one who wanted out of the relationship. Maybe Tim was chasing Becky, like he wanted her back. I think that Tim planned the murder a month or so in advance. He paid a visit to Becky's house before the murder, but for some reason did not follow through. Maybe he was just checking things out, like he was casing her house. Tim's plan was simple: ride a bicycle to Becky's house, break in, and shoot her with her own pistol, the same gun he failed to return to her. When Becky asked him to watch their sons, it was the opportunity Tim was waiting for. He made his move. Tim was worried about the sound of the gunshots and leaving spent cases behind, so he planned to use the grocery bags to muffle the sound and to catch the cases. Despite this, he left several cartridge cases behind at the crime scene. Tim was extremely impatient and really had no idea what he was doing. He made several mistakes and was the obvious suspect. He was caught because he left behind a mountain of evidence. Tim is not happy about being in prison, but he is satisfied that he completed his homicidal mission. For whatever it was that he believed Becky did to him, Tim achieved his revenge. As far as the family feud angle in this case became popular because of Tim's answer on that show, but it was not connected to the antisocial behavior he demonstrated later. Ironically, the dark humor that he employed on the show was actually indicative of him functioning well. Processing dark humor requires organizing multiple layers of meaning and creating emotional distance from the content. Research indicates that dark humor is associated with higher intelligence, being less aggressive, and resisting negative feelings more effectively. Furthermore, Tim had the insight to recognize that his wife may not have appreciated the answer. Many people believe that Tim's performance on The Family Feud foreshadowed Homicide, but it actually predicted not being the killer. His loss of the ability to appreciate dark humor was the real sign of danger. Now moving to my final thoughts. The case of Tim and Becky Bliefnick can be summarized in this way. A man and his wife frequently found themselves in a face-off. The relationship did not experience a winning streak because good husband was not one of the top 5 answers on the board. It was never repeated after hearing the phrase, survey says. The man decided to steal loneliness and became obsessed with making it to the fast money round. He buzzed in and answered with sudden death. Although he accomplished his morbid goal, he ended up with 3 strikes. Those are my thoughts on the case of Tim and Rebecca Bliefnick. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.